Hello, dear students. Today we are going to continue with part 3 of Flash Forset Transform. With this, you have the three first concepts in order to integrate to your strategic toolkit, which will be your partial test. That said, let's begin. Welcome. By 1996, it was clear to all that the innovative little company, despite its past successes, was doomed to fail. The New York Times had already written its epitaph. Whether they stand alone or are acquired, as we know, it is cooked. It's so classic. It's so sad. Time magazine echoed the Times pronouncement. The company is a chaotic mess without a strategic vision and certainly no future. So did Fortune magazine. By the time you read this story, the quirky cold company will end its wild ride as an independent enterprise. Incredibly, a year and a half later, that quirky cold company was still breeding, but surely its days were numbered. After all, according to the Financial Times, the idea that they are going to hit a big home run is delusional. But one man's delusion is another man's dream, and that big home run was not long in coming. The Doom company all these experts were eulogizing was, nevertheless, Apple Computer. The experts were all dead wrong. Of course, and just how wrong can be spelled out in 4 letters. iPod, iPod. In 2001, the cooked, delusional company with certainly no future came out of nowhere to dominate a market that hardly anyone even realized existed. In 2001, the year the iPod launched, MP3 players represented a 50 million market worldwide. 5 years later, that market was in excess of 2 billion. By the end of 2009, Apple had sold nearly a quarter of a billion iPods, and less than 6 months later, it shot past Microsoft to become the world's single most highly valued, technologically advanced company. How on earth did Jobs and Co. accomplish this miracle? Answer: a transformation happened, and they saw it coming. Apple's success with the iPod was the result of many factors, strategic factors, including a corporate culture that holds innovation as one of its highest values. But the core of that success came down to a single flash foresight. The people of Apple saw that technology was going vertical. In other words, they saw where the digital accelerators of processing power, bandwidth, and storage were going. And because they saw that, they also saw the opportunity to profit from them. And later came the iPhone. Apple didn't just capture a little slice of recorded music. It transformed the entire industry and threw its status quo into a tailspin. For decades, starting with Elvis, the Beatles, and Dylan, the industry had had a spectacular run as it followed the growing baby boom generation. Like the big three automakers, the big four record labels, Sony, Universal, EMI, and Warner, built massive organizations with huge profit margins, and they commanded a good 3/4 of the recorded music market. The good times didn't last forever, though. By 2005, they had lost 25% of that market share, and the bleeding hasn't stopped. In view of the growth of P2P file sharing and free MP3 downloads, the idea of charging for downloaded music seemed impossible to most, but not to Apple. Upon its launch in April 2003, Apple's online music store iTunes quickly became a major force in music distribution. By the end of 2005, it had racked up 500 million downloads, and on February 23, 2006, recorded music hit a milestone that signaled a cataclysmic shift in the industry. The British pop group Coldplay's song "The Speed of Sound" became the 1 billionth iTunes download. By 2007, Apple's Virtual Music Store had become the nation's third largest music retailer. By early 2008, it had surpassed Walmart and become the single largest seller of music in the United States alone. So, you may be thinking, what happened here? The tsunami happened. Bandwidth, processing, and storage accelerated so furiously that suddenly it was possible to buy, store, retrieve, and enjoy a high-quality home stereo experience virtually, and the big four record labels did not see it coming. In a business based on marketing a physical product, vinyl, disc, cassette tape, CD, of which at last 90% is peer-proofed, what happens when that product suddenly migrates to a medium from which all the atoms have been removed? The business collapses. Record music was hit by the first of our 8 pathways of technological advancement: dematerialization. When Steve Jobs decided to invest in iTunes and iPod technology, he put Apple out in front, ahead of the technological curve. In 2007, Apple became the third largest PC maker in the United States. By early 2008, while much of the market was entering a slump, the company was growing 3.5 times faster than the rest of the PC industry. It is also interesting to note that Apple also clearly saw where the hard trends of dematerialization, mobility, networking, and convergence were going, which allowed them to see the future of where their customers and their company were heading. They dropped computer for their name, becoming simply Apple Inc. A short time later, they launched their next history-making revolution with the iPhone. The iPod rode the predictably increasing wave of storage, Digital Accelerator 3. The iTunes Store rode a predictably increasing wave of bandwidth, Digital Accelerator 2. Predictably, the big four television networks began experiencing exactly the same crisis as the big four record labels. By 2008, Americans were watching more minutes per day of video on YouTube than on the top 10 television shows. Like the iPod, YouTube came out of nowhere to dominate a field that hardly anyone realized was there, becoming a $1 billion company in the process. Like the recording giants, the television giants were all caught by surprise. It's not that they didn't expect things to change. They knew things would change. But things didn't change. They transformed. Blur, streak, gone. According to the new Oxford American Dictionary, change means to make something different, while transform means to make a thorough or dramatic change. It is a difference of degree, but that degree is so extreme that it becomes a qualitative difference. Changing means continuing to do essentially the same thing, only introducing some variations in degree. Build it a little bigger, smaller, faster, higher, longer. Increase the marketing budget. Add a few staff to the department. Build a snazzier looking SUV. Come up with a new slogan. But GM cannot be fixed by changing, nor can the recorded music industry or television network survive simply by changing. Embracing change is no longer enough. We need to transform. Transformation means doing something utterly and radically different. It means nanofusion. It means putting oil rigs at the bottom of the ocean and reimagining GM on a Dell model. In the early 1990s, the beloved Barnes & Noble superstores changed how we shop for books. By the mid-1990s, Amazon was transforming how we shop for books, which then transformed how we shop for everything. As a teenager, I had a collection of my favorite music on long-playing vinyl discs. When 8-track tapes and 10 cassette tapes came out, that was a great change. Now, we could hear the music in the car. When the industry moved from LPs and cassettes to CDs, that was an even better change. Now we could hear our favorite music without the hisses and scratches. But with an iPod, now you can carry your entire music library around in your shirt pocket. And with the introduction of the Nano, there were no longer any moving parts, nothing to spin. Nothing moves but electrons, and they can be transferred at the speed of light to anywhere. The 8-track audiocassette, Sony Walkman, and CDs all changed how we listen to music. MP3 and the iPod transformed it. One of my favorite images of this distinction comes from the 1977 film Star Wars. In the moment when the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo's tin can smuggling ship, shifts into hyperspace. Up to that point, you can see the stars hanging motionless outside the portholes. Then, all at once, the stars shift and blur, change from white dots to white streaks, and then they're gone. In 1977, that was science fiction, but that's what the pace of transformation in today's reality feels like. Blur, streak, and gone. In the 90s, we were always telling ourselves to think outside the box. It's a neat image, evoking creativity and unconventional thinking, as a way to arrive at ingenious new paths and solutions. But like being proactive, it's a slogan whose time has come and gone. Here's a problem with thinking outside the box. We all know that no matter how creative we get during the weekend seminar, come Monday morning, we're going to have to crawl back into the box again and deal with our current reality. The problem isn't that we need new ways to simply step outside the box. We need to transform the box itself. In fact, whatever your box is, your job, company, career, situation, it is going to transform whether we like it or not. There is no field or profession, no business or organization, no country or society that is not going to transform dramatically and fundamentally over the years ahead. Just ask the Big Four. In October 2007, the popular band Radiohead stunned the industry by releasing its new album, In Rainbows, exclusively online as a downloadable MP3. No CD, just a series of ones and zeros floating somewhere in the electron streams of virtual space. Before long, the Eagles, Joni Mitchell, Madonna, and Paul McCartney had all severed their ties with the major recording labels. What happened to the industry's lucrative CD deals? Blur, Strike, and gone. There's no recovery coming. When I was 30, I visited Glacier National Park in Montana. It's a stunning location, and I returned with a tons of photos of the mountains there. Years later, two kids from my neighborhood took a camping trip with their dad. When they returned home, I asked them how they liked the park. They shrugged. "Not so great," said the older boy. "Yeah," his little brother chimed in. "Wasn't that impressive? Just a bunch of pine trees. Not going back there again." They showed me a snapshot of the two of them standing with some friends against a backdrop of sullen haze. No wonder they weren't impressed. A thick blanket of smoke from recent fires, combined with some especially cloudy weather, had completely obscured the mountains. "Hang on a sec," I said, and went to bring out my photo album from my earlier trip. I showed them a few breathtaking shots of the mountains, climbing regally into the sky. "What do you think?" "Cool," the younger brother said. "Where's that?" "Yeah," said the other boy. "We should go there next time." But that they had gone there. They just hadn't seen the mountains because the mountains were shrouded from view. That's where we are right now. We're standing at the foot of an enormous mountain of change. Only most people can see it. Because of the fog and smoke raised by events like the recent global economic downturn and recent geopolitical situations and the recent worldwide virus. After the world slipped into the recession of 2008 and 2009, people were asking when we are going to really experience a recovery. But the answer was already implicit in the question. What they were really asking was, when are the things going to go back to normal? When are we going back to our old jobs, to our old economic stability? When is life going back to the way it was? But that's not going to happen. There is not going to be a recovery. Economic flux is a cyclic change. All recessions are temporary. Oh, things will get better. They are already improving, as you hear these lines. But in reality, there will be no recovery, no going back, only a surge forward into a very different world. You have seen it past the pandemic. From our vantage point, it's easy to assume that the biggest changes have already happened. The internet has already turned our world upside down and changed everything. But that's hindsight, not foresight. Remember, we are analyzing foresight. The proliferation of the internet throughout the last decade has been the prologue, not the unfolding story itself. It was not a transformation, it was only the foundation that laid the groundwork for the transformations to follow, the overwhelming majority of which are still ahead of us. We are at the dawn of an era of technology driven transformation that will make the changes we have experienced over the past 25 years seem tame, mild, and slow. We have crossed the threshold into a time of transformation, and that is the context of the third flash foresight trigger. Expect radical transformation. In the past, it was important to change. Now it's no longer enough to change. In fact, as I tell my clients, to change is to fail. We need to transform ourselves, our business, and our world, and transform it for the better, not for the worse. Our intelligent future. Among the biggest challenges facing us in the new century is that of energy. The quest for sources of energy has historically been one of the biggest driving forces of colonization, global discord, and war, and as well as many great fortunes. Our consumption of fossil fuels now stands as arguably our greatest ecological threat, and it is a prime factor in many of our business and biggest economic and geopolitical crises. In fact, this is one reason we opened this course by looking at nanofusion and oil drilling. If we can use flash foresight to solve our energy challenges, we will transform our world for the better in great ways, creatively from the inside out, not the inside in, rather than catastrophically from the outside in. In the next chapter, we will look at what Flash Foresight has to say about the future of oil and other fuels and other implications. But regardless of whether we're using oil or wind, coal or biofuels, nuclear power or nanofusion, our biggest energy problem is that we're asking the wrong questions. The central question is not what we should be using for fuel, but how we should be using it. The answer to that question is with intelligence. The Flash Foresight solution to rising energy costs is to transform our use of fuel by adding intelligence to the process itself. Of the 8 pathways of technological transformation we look at briefly in the last chapter, part 2, exploring one of them in more detail would give us a fascinating look into the visible future, but product intelligence, pathway 4, is perhaps the most vivid example of seeing how dramatically technology is going to transform everything in the years to come. The cost of intelligence is falling, even faster than the cost of energy is rising. What's more, it will continue falling for years to come. Can you really say this was certainty? Yes, because it's a hard trend. It's a direct result of the increase in processing power, storage and bandwidth, our 3 digital accelerators. As we design new ways to integrate product intelligence into every tool, system or vehicle that uses petroleum fuel, for example, we counter the rising cost of that fuel with a falling cost of intelligence, allowing us to do more and more with less and less fuel. In fact, we already see how this works. In the 70s, we were wringing our hands because we were running out of oil. What happened? For one thing, fuel injection. We married the computer to the internal combustion engine and brought intelligence to the process. Fuel injection had an enormous impact on mileage effectiveness and overall fuel consumption. At the same time, developments in technology allow us to get more oil out of old wells we thought were dry. Thanks to vastly improved data mining and virtualization simulation modeling along with new drilling technologies, for example, allowing us to drill sideways instead of only straight down, we developed ways of detecting, reaching, and extracting oil from entirely new places. And that was only a glimpse of what's possible. As the 3 digital accelerators head into a vertical curve, the more we add in intelligence to the systems that burn petroleum fuels, the more we'll economize and balance the rising costs. At the same time, while the cost of intelligence continues to fall, the intelligence of intelligence, that is, the increasing sophistication and capabilities of embedded product intelligence, continues to rise in an arc that is itself approaching vertical. What we think of today as smart concrete will be at the top end of the scale maybe 10-15 years from now, and the smart end of the scale will be staggering compared to what's possible today. For example, in the previous part 2, we talked about smart parking lots, but the gains there pale in comparison to the savings we'll gain, both economic and ecological. As we create smarter streets and stoplights and allow them to communicate real-time data to everything else, we presently burn up more gasoline stuck in urban and suburban gridlock than we do actually driving out on the freeway. By embedding sensors and microchips in concrete, we create smarter intersections that know what traffic is flowing at all times and communicate that knowledge to the stoplights and to our cars' navigation systems. If our auto tires were inflated to the optimum pressure, we could have billions of barrels of oil. Smart tires that can tell us how much it is costing us not to put sufficient air in them will help. And smarter tires that feel themselves while in motion will be even better. Communication means networking and interactivity. Pathways 5 and 6. In fact, these innovations of intelligence will use all 8 pathways and not just the one we call product intelligence. It means harnessing the intelligence power of the 3 digital accelerators to transform our infrastructure. The impact of smart infrastructure goes beyond fuel savings. It also means saving lives. If we can build intelligence into our bridges so they can tell us how stressed they are before they collapse, then we can also build smart levees and let us know before they burst. We can do all these things. The technological capacity already exists. There are no pipe dreams. They are in the pipeline coming toward us. In the future, we'll bring intelligence to everything that uses any kind of energy. Smart houses that know your habits and schedules, as well as the changing cost of electricity in real time, minute by minute. Your house will know exactly how to adjust your climate lighting and other power consuming features in the most economical and optimal performance ways. Smart cars that know when to use which fuel according to the terrain, locale, and type of driving you're doing. Intelligence will drive our multi-fuel future, so that our tools will know when to use different fuels and how to use them for optimum efficiency and productivity. Right now, 65% of all industrial energy consumption in the United States alone is used to run our electric motors, the great majority of which operates at single speeds. In terms of efficiency, this is like driving your car, using only the brake pedal to vary the speed. If these motors were outfitted with intelligent drive units that could control their speed to match the output required, it would reduce their energy consumption by 30%, an absolutely enormous reduction in the electricity needed for greenhouse gases produced. Dale Morgan tells me that in his latest patent for nanofusion, he's designing a way to make the fuel itself intelligent. And if we have smart homes and offices and smart power plants, we will also need to have smart transformation and transmission systems, smart grids, or everything will stay dumbed down, which means smart grids too are an imperative. We can apply the same flash foresight to other sectors of industry too, for example to food supply. To a great extent, the story of civilizations has been the story of our changing relationship to the earth. Just because we style ourselves as a post-agricultural doesn't mean that Primal Link isn't every bit as important today as it has always been. Consider the international food riots of early 2008. The need for agriculture will never be obsolete. We will always live on growing things from the earth, just as we will always breathe, laugh, and love. It's part of our human nature. However, in the face of the transformation that is upon us, we need to reinvent agriculture just as we do our use of fuels. We need to add intelligence to agriculture. Writing about the future of agriculture in 1990, in the book Advances in Agriculture, it was predicted to use of GPS to plow straight rows by the 19th, and then by the second decade of the new century farmers would be using fully intelligent tractors and putting biodegradable sensors with wireless transmitters and an antenna in their fields, allowing them to tell by computer readout what parts of the field are being attacked by insects, which areas are low on moisture, which sections need a little more phosphorus. Instead of treating all 100,000 acres the same way, they would now treat only the spots we need. Today GPS is commonplace. Tractors can drive themselves, and that wireless sensor technology is quickly becoming a reality. With this more intelligent agriculture, we'll know exactly when and where there's an insect infestation. So instead of blasting an entire crop with an insecticide, and we can make our field applications with laser precision, and for those applications, we'll use insecticides derived from plants and insects, making them more organic and less toxic to the environment and to us. Imagine the savings in energy, time, and dollars, as well as how much we reduce the negative impact of overtreatment. With sensors in the soil, crops will become intelligent, telling us exactly when our crops are thirsty and which crops and how thirsty. Instead of pouring entire rivers into our fields at huge economical and ecological costs, we'll meter out water only to those areas of the field that needed it, when they needed it, and in the amounts they need it. How we will know? They'll tell us, and because the cost of water is going up, just like the cost of fuel, while the cost of intelligence is going down, smart irrigation alone will effect an economic revolution in agriculture. Intelligent healthcare. I've known Dr. Ben Durkee since he was a kid. I used to hire him to rake the leaves on my lawn, and as he got older, he learned to use flash foresight to shape his future. When he decided to go to a medical school, he pursued both PhD and an MD concurrently. As a 26-year-old third-year graduate student at the University of Wisconsin, Ben won first place in Chicago's Innovation Whiteboard Challenge for a fascinating innovation. Working with his research partner, Matthew Christensen, Ben developed a most unusual pill, actually a combination of two pills, to help in the area of colon cancer. Not to treat it, to prevent it. The first pill contains a biomarker and a fluorescent molecule. As it travels through your system, the biomarker will seek out, detect, and locate any cancer cells in your intestinal tract. The second pill is a microelectric tablet that uses light signals to track the fluorescent molecule and communicate its location to an external pager or application for readout. Essentially, Ben and Matthew have created a virtual colonoscopy that will allow the easier detection of intestinal polyps before they become cancerous. Using flash foresight, it's easy to see that before long, Ben or someone like him will follow with a virtual biopsy. Consider the implications. Colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States. Every 9 minutes, someone in the United States dies from that disease. It's generally estimated that as many as 90% of these 48,000 annual deaths might be prevented by early detection. But there's a problem. The idea of a colonoscopy is unpleasant enough to be a significant deterrent. Imagine the impact this one intelligent technology could have in both lives and dollars. So prevention here is the key word. Like energy and agriculture, healthcare is an area that has been plagued with skyrocketing costs. And one critical key to containing those costs is to take advantage of the sweeping transformation created by the gone vertical curve of the three digital accelerators and the falling cost of intelligence. Ben and Matthew Cancer Detecting Capsule is a perfect example of what happens when you add intelligence and dematerialization to medical treatment. It becomes far less invasive and far more effective, saves a lot of lives and a great deal of money. We used to have a crack open your chest to do a bypass surgery. Now we can do it endoscopically with just a few slender probes. The robotic Da Vinci surgical system led us to minimally invasive prostatic surgery. Remember when we practiced being inventors with our baby boomer based new business brainstorming exercise in our inaugural part 1? Let's do that one more time. One of the major health problems among the elderly is broken hips. 1/4 of seniors in the United States have a chronic problem with balance, leading to 300,000 broken hips each year, nearly 40% of which are followed within the next year by death. In fact, falling is the leading cause of accidental death in adults over 85 years of age. And knowing where demographics is leading us, we know we are going to have a lot more people in that age bracket in the years ahead. What do we do? Well, what if we build intelligence into shoes and develop footwear that would monitor and correct balance? Such a technology already exists, or originally developed to help astronauts walk on the moon. Could we apply that technology to a shoe for seniors? In fact, someone already has. It's called the iShoe. The device analyzes pressure distribution through the insole and provides a computer readout so that doctors can diagnose balance problems. If an imbalance is detected while the wearer is mobile, the insoles generate tactic stimulation to correct it. And in the event that a person does fall, the shoe can be set to automatically notify emergency services and or caregivers. Adding intelligence does some remarkable things to healthcare. With microprocessing fabric, we can create a smart bed that would take your temperature and read your heart rate. Again, someone has already done it. Or something very similar. The Life Shirt is a smart garment, as light as an undershirt, that gathers data from the wearer, including movement, respiration, posture, and activity level for 24 hours. The system can also gather information on blood oxygen levels, brain wave activity, exhaled carbon dioxide, and more. It is estimated that the system could save US hospitals as much as 200 billion over the next 25 years. And the Japanese have developed a smart toilet. When you use it, it knows who you are and takes a urinal analysis or stool sample. If your sugar levels start looking unusual, it will alert your doctor. In the early 80s, I applied flash foresight to medicine and began sharing with doctors the kinds of transformational changes they would start seeing when X-rays went digital. When digital technology removed the physical film from the process, the materialization, the process would not simply improve it, it would transform. With digital X-rays, suddenly we would be able to adjust contrast and manipulate information in ways that would allow us to see things we couldn't see before. And since digital files could be readily transmitted, the information in X-rays would be set free from earthbound constraints, and it would become possible to have instantaneous consultations with experts thousands of miles distant or even around the globe. This is exactly what has happened over the past decade. In The World is Flat, Thomas Friedman talks about the outsourcing of X-rays analysis. Physicians in India read our X-rays during their office hours, and when our doctors come into the office in the morning, the results are already there for them. And it isn't just our X-rays. The onward rush of our three digital accelerators is freeing practically every aspect of healthcare from its past limitations. Just imagine this scene. In the darkest early morning, something pulls you upright in bed. Your breath is strained and shallow. The night air feels clammy on your skin. You glance at the clock, 3:10 a.m. What was it that woke you? Ah, there it is again, a gripping, cramping pain in your chest. Along with the pain, you are seized by a choking fear. Am I having a heart attack? You tell yourself to calm down. You could get dressed, get in the car, and make your way to the emergency room 30 minutes away. Go through a meeting, wait your turn, and then convince the triage nurse you may have having a heart attack and need to get in to see a doctor ASAP. But what if it's only heartburn? Should you sit tight and see how things feel in half an hour? What if it really is your heart, and while you're sitting tight, you you drop dead? What should you do before that? Using voice control, you switch on your high definition media center and go to the virtual hospital channel. You scan the regional listing, find the hospital you like, and pull it up on your screen. Elmbrook Hospital Virtual Emergency Room. A nurse appears on the screen and says, Elmbrook BER, can we have your biometric? You could instead head over to virtual admitting where you fill out a series of virtual forms, but given the circumstances you say sure. Filling out virtual forms can be just as much fun as filling out paper forms. Your HD Media Center embedded camera uses facial recognition and a quick eye scan to identify you. And an instant later, the people at Elmbrook Hospital have your medical records. They know your complete medical history, any medications you've on, any allergies, and all of the rest. In 5 seconds, the nurse is back on screen asking you what's going on. You tell her, I'm having heart palpitations, shortness of breath. I'm concerned I may be having a heart attack. Okay, she says. Take out your medical sensor pack and clip the red biosensor on your index finger. Now take out the yellow sensor and hold it to your chest. We're going to get your EKG, pulse, temperature, blood pressure, and oxygen levels. 10 seconds later, your vital signs have all been recorded. Read and interpret. Virtual triage. She looks up, smiles, and asks, What did you have for dinner? You tell her. Good thing you didn't come in, she says. It's not a cardiac arrest. Chances are it's just a great indigestion. What have you saved? time, stress, worry, and a small ton of medical staff time. Multiply your own experience by the more than 100 million ER visits in the United States every year, and the impact is staggering. The ER visit has been the great economic sinkhole of the American hospital system. Primetime television dramas notwithstanding, most people who visit the ER don't need to be there, even though they are one of the most costly ways to obtain routine treatment. Well, more than half the nation's ER visits are judged unnecessary. One report estimated that the total annual cost of unnecessary ER and doctor's office visits in the United States alone is just under 31 billion. That's a lot of money we're flushing down our hospital toilets, most of which we could have saved the product intelligence applications of remote and virtual diagnostics. Here is just a partial list of the advances in healthcare tools and techniques we can see in the visible future. Remote diagnostics, remote monitoring, virtual hospitals, wireless telemedicine, regrowing body parts, in-depth genetic screening, evidence-based, intelligence and communication-driven medicine, result-based, e-enabled patient choice, e-enabled assisted living, e-enabled disease management, e-enabled health records.